The most dangerous lie ever told to you is that you are running out of time. Let me submit to you. That time is not your enemy. Time has never been your enemy. The enemy is the understanding you were given about time long before you had the capacity to question it. Someone handed you a map and you opened it and assumed it was yours. You have been navigating with the blueprint that belongs to someone else and wondering why you keep arriving at destinations you never intended to visit. You have been told that the secret to mastering your life is simple. Work harder, wake up earlier, do more, produce more. Fill every available space. And the moment you stop filling space, the moment you allow even a breath of stillness, you are losing. This is not wisdom. This is damage. This is a system designed to keep you moving without ever arriving anywhere that matters. You do not need motivation. You need revelation. That is the first correction that must land in you before anything else can begin. Motivation is emotional fuel. It arrives hot and burns fast and leaves ash. Revelation is a restructuring. It happens at the level of how you see. And what I am delivering to you right now is not encouragement. It is not a speech designed to make you feel better about the life you are currently living. It is a correction, a precise, surgical interruption of everything you have accepted as normal about how you spend your 24 hours. Because nothing about it is normal. Nothing about it is aligned. And until that truth settles in you, no system you implement will produce lasting results. Here is what has been placed in the mind of the average person regarding time. They have been taught that genius belongs to the person who does the most in the smallest window. That efficiency is measured by volume. That every minute not filled with output is a minute stolen from success. They have been told that rest is a concession to weakness. That stillness is a sign of falling behind. That the only way to arrive at greatness is to run faster than everyone around you. And this belief, this deeply embedded belief, has become the single greatest destroyer of human potential on this earth. Not because it is evil, because it sounds correct. It sounds like logic. It sounds like discipline. But it is none of those things. It is misalignment dressed in the language of productivity. The manufacturer did not design your 24 hours to be stuffed. The manufacturer designed them to be structured. There is a massive difference between those two words. And until you understand the distance between them, you will never master a single day of your life. To stuff something is to force more into a space than that space was built to hold. To structure something is to arrange it according to its original design specifications. And the moment you learn to structure rather than stuff, everything about your relationship with time changes. Where purpose is not known, abuse is inevitable. That principle must live inside you. It cannot simply be a statement you read and move past. It must become the governing law by which you evaluate every single hour you spend. Because if you do not know what your 24 hours were designed to produce, you will fill them with anything that feels urgent. You will pour energy into tasks that have no connection to your original assignment. You will end your days depleted and your weeks empty. And you will wonder how a life that looks so full feels so hollow. The answer to that question is always the same. You are abusing time because you do not know its purpose. And you do not know its purpose because no one ever taught you to discover it. Let me take you into the mind of a manufacturer. When this person designs a product, they begin with a document. That document is called the blueprint. It contains every specification, every measurement, every function the product must fulfill. The blueprint is not a suggestion, it is law. It is the governing authority over everything that follows. Every single unit that comes off the production line is measured against that blueprint, not against other units, not against what the market demands, against the blueprint. The moment a unit deviates, it is flagged, it is corrected, it is returned to the point where the error occurred, and the error is addressed. You are that unit. Your life is that production line. And there is a blueprint that governs both. The reason you are losing the war against your own hours is because you were disconnected from that blueprint at a very early stage. You have been building your days according to measurements that were never yours, and until you return to the original document, no amount of early mornings or productivity applications will correct the fundamental misalignment. This is the first kingdom principle of mastering your 24 hours. You must return to the blueprint before you can restructure the factory, before you rearrange a single commitment, before you wake up 1 minute earlier, before you delete a single application from your device. You must first answer the question that most people avoid because it requires honesty they are not prepared to give. The question is this: what am I actually designed to produce? Not what looks impressive, not what will earn approval from the people around you, not what the market rewards. What were you built to output? What is the function that was placed inside you at the point of your creation? Because until that question is answered with precision, every system you build will be a system organized around the wrong center. There is a truth in the study of engineering that illuminates this. A commercial aircraft is one of the most sophisticated machines ever built. Its purpose is singular: flight. Everything about it, every wire, every panel, every drop of fuel is oriented toward that single function. Now consider someone who decided to use that aircraft to transport goods on a highway. They strip out the cabin, they lower it to the ground, they try to drive it. It might move, but it will never fly. And the longer it remains on the ground, the more its fundamental systems deteriorate. The engine was not built for road conditions. The wings were not designed to bear weight in that direction. The aircraft is being used outside of its original specification, and the result is slow, quiet destruction of the very thing that makes it extraordinary. This is happening to millions of people every single day. They are taking instruments of flight and using them as trucks. They are filling their hours with the tasks of someone else, and they wonder why they feel broken. It is misalignment, and misalignment can only be corrected by returning to the blueprint. The first practical action begins with an act of honest discovery. You must sit down without distraction, without agenda, and spend real time examining what emerges from you when you are most yourself. Not when you are performing, not when you are trying to meet an expectation. When you are simply functioning at your most natural, what do people seek you for without you advertising your ability? What problem do you solve without effort? What conversation lights something inside you that other conversations do not touch? These are not random observations. They are signals. They are echoes of the blueprint, and they must be gathered and studied before your schedule is touched. The second principle: time is not measured in minutes. Time is measured in impact. This is the place where the conventional understanding of productivity collapses entirely, because the conventional system tells you to count hours, count tasks, count output, fill a list, cross items off, repeat. And at the end of the count, feel productive. But let me submit to you that counting hours without measuring impact is like counting the number of seeds you drop into the ground without ever checking whether any of them produced fruit. The number is meaningless if nothing grew. Time, in its truest and most powerful form, is not a quantity, it is a quality. 1 hour spent in perfect alignment with your assignment is worth more than 12 hours spent in scattered activity that produces nothing of substance. And when you make this shift, when you move from counting to measuring, the entire way you evaluate your day transforms. The question is no longer how much did I accomplish. The question becomes, what did I produce today that moved the work forward? The work that is connected to the blueprint. If that output moved, the day was successful. If it did not, then no amount of busyness compensated for the absence of real progress. There is a tree that grows in regions where the soil is thin and the moisture is scarce. It does not shoot up quickly. It does not spread wide like the trees growing beside rivers and lakes. It grows slowly, deliberately, over decades. But its wood is extraordinarily dense, extraordinarily strong. It is the kind of wood that does not bend easily, does not crack under pressure, does not yield to storms the way the fast-growing trees do. When the great storms arrive, and they always arrive, the fast trees break, they fall. They are carried away. But the slow tree, the tree that prioritized the quality of its growth over the speed of it, remains standing. It remains standing because its internal structure was built for endurance rather than impression. You have been taught to grow fast. You have been told that speed is the measure of ability, but the real genius is not in speed. The genius is in density. The genius is in the quality of what you are building inside your hours. 3 hours spent in deep, uninterrupted work on your actual assignment will produce more lasting output than a full day spent cycling between tasks that feel productive but accomplish nothing permanent. The third principle: mastery is not about addition, mastery is about subtraction. This is the correction that meets the most resistance. Because the entire architecture of the culture around achievement is built on the logic of addition. Add skills, add hours, add commitments, add responsibilities. More is always the answer. And this logic, this addition logic, is quietly destroying the capacity of millions of people to ever arrive at mastery. Because mastery, in the understanding of a manufacturer, is not about putting more into the system. It is about removing everything that is preventing the system from operating at the capacity it was built for. When an engineer refines an engine, they do not add parts to make it run better. They identify friction. They locate waste. They cut away every element that is standing between the engine and its design performance. That process is subtraction. And it is the process by which genius is revealed, not by accumulating more, but by stripping away everything that is not essential. To master your 24 hours, you must first become ruthless about what is inside them that does not belong. Every commitment that is not connected to your blueprint, every habit that was inherited rather than chosen, every obligation that was accepted out of fear rather than alignment. These must be removed, not reduced, not reorganized, removed. And the resistance you feel when you hear that, the guilt, the anxiety, the fear that you will disappoint someone or appear ungrateful, that resistance is the very evidence of how deeply the misalignment has been embedded in your life. Because a person who knows their assignment does not apologize for protecting the hours that belong to it. The fourth principle, rest is not the opposite of productivity. Rest is built into the design. Every manufacturing system in the world, without exception, has a maintenance cycle. That cycle is not an afterthought. It is not an accommodation for weakness. It is a deliberate, essential feature that was engineered into the system from the very beginning. The machine requires downtime, not because it is failing, but because downtime is what allows it to continue producing at full capacity for the longest possible duration. Remove the maintenance cycle, and the machine does not simply slow down, it breaks. Your system, your body and your mind, operates on the same principle. And the moment you began treating rest as a reward you earn, or as a guilty indulgence you steal, or as a sign that you are not serious about your work, you began damaging the very system you are depending on to produce your destiny. The genius does not rest less. The genius rests correctly. The genius understands that the hours spent in recovery are not lost hours. They are investment hours. They are hours being used by the system to repair, to consolidate, to restore the capacity that sustained output requires. This does not mean you become passive. It means you become precise about recovery. You study what your system actually needs, and you provide it without guilt. For some people, rest is silence. For others, it is movement. For some, it is solitude. For others, it is connection. The form is not the principle. The principle is absolute. You must recover. And the way you recover must be specific to your own design. The fifth principle, your morning is not a routine. Your morning is a declaration. Most people treat the morning as a series of automatic functions. They wake, they reach for information, they scroll, they receive messages. They check what others are doing and what others need from them. Before the first hour has passed, they have already handed their mind to the world. They are already responding to the agenda of someone else. They have already become passengers in their own day. The manufacturer designed the morning as the most powerful window of the day. It is the period when clarity is highest, when the capacity for focus is at its sharpest, and when the direction you establish will carry through everything that follows. To surrender that window to external noise is to surrender the entire day, because the direction has already been set, and it was not set by you. The correction is not about waking earlier. People have been conditioned to believe that the time of waking is the measure of discipline. It is not. The measure of discipline is what you do with the first moments after waking. If those moments are given to alignment, to the process of connecting your intention and your energy to your blueprint, then the morning has been used correctly. If those moments are given to distraction, then it does not matter what time the eyes opened. The morning has already been lost. Create a window every morning before the world reaches you, dedicated entirely to the practice of setting your direction. What happens in that window is between you and your own design. It does not need to be announced. It does not need to be explained. It simply must happen. And it must happen before anything else. The sixth principle, discipline is not punishment. Discipline is alignment in practice. There is a craftsman, and his workshop held 2 apprentices. Both had natural talent in their hands. Both could produce work of genuine quality. For the first year, they were nearly identical in what they created. But as the months continued, a separation began. The first apprentice, confident in his natural ability, began to rely on that ability alone. He arrived when he felt inspired. He worked when the mood moved him. He believed that talent by itself was sufficient. The second apprentice made a different choice. He arrived before the workshop was fully lit. He spent the first portion of every morning in deliberate practice, not because his hands were weak, but because he understood something his companion did not. He understood that talent, without the daily discipline of application, remains a seed that never breaks the surface. 5 years passed. The first apprentice was remembered for moments, flashes of brilliance that appeared unpredictably and could not be counted on. The second apprentice was remembered as a master, not because he was born with greater skill, but because his daily discipline transformed his natural ability into something consistent, reliable, and extraordinary. He became the genius, not through a gift he received, but through a practice he maintained. Every single day, this is the truth about genius that has been hidden from you for most of your life. Genius is not something you are born with. It is something you build through the disciplined application of your hours to your specific design. And that discipline, that daily practice, is not suffering. It is not self-denial for the sake of suffering. It is the experience of living in agreement with what you were built to do. And when your life is in agreement with your design, the work does not feel like labor. It feels like the most natural thing you have ever done. The seventh principle. Your assignment determines your schedule, not the other way around. The most common error in the construction of a daily life is the error of sequence. People build their schedules first. They fill the hours with obligations, with social commitments, with the expectations of others, with tasks that feel necessary but are not connected to anything of permanent significance. And then, at the very end, in whatever space remains, they attempt to fit in the work that actually belongs to their life. There is never space remaining because obligation and urgency, by their nature, expand to fill every available inch. They are hungry. They consume. And if you allow them to lead, they will consume everything, including the hours that were meant for your destiny. The reversal is to begin with the assignment. Give it the first portion of your day. Give it your clearest thinking, your sharpest focus, your highest energy, and then build everything else around that center. This is not selfishness. This is the correct order of construction. A building is not constructed by starting with the decoration and hoping the foundation appears later. The foundation comes first, and your assignment is your foundation. There is a principle in the study of ecosystems, of natural systems that sustain entire landscapes. In every healthy ecosystem, there is what is called a keystone species. This is not necessarily the largest creature, or the most powerful, or the most visible. It is the species upon which the stability of the entire system depends. Remove the keystone species, and the ecosystem does not decline gradually. It collapses. Everything built around it falls apart. Your assignment is the keystone species of your life. And the moment you allow other things to occupy the center that belongs to it, the entire structure of your days begins to destabilize. You can feel it already. The exhaustion that does not respond to sleep. The frustration that does not respond to success in areas that do not matter. The quiet, persistent sense that something fundamental is out of order. That feeling is the ecosystem responding to the removal of its keystone. Now let me stop here and interrupt this teaching, because I need to address something directly. You have heard messages like this before, not these exact words, but the spirit of them. You have been taught about purpose and alignment. You have been told that your time matters. And yet, here you are, still scattered, still losing hours to things that produce nothing, still waking up tired and going to bed feeling like the day was spent rather than invested. And the reason is not that you have not heard enough. The problem is the gap between understanding and obedience. Knowledge without obedience is entertainment. It produces nothing tangible. You can understand every principle in this teaching and still change nothing about your life. And you will change nothing unless something shifts in you today that moves you from the position of listener to the position of actor. This is the moment, not tomorrow, not when the conditions feel better. This moment, the principles being delivered, demand action. Immediate, uncomfortable action. Action that will require you to say no to things you have always said yes to. Action that will require you to protect hours that you have always given away freely. And if you are ready for that, if something inside you has finally reached the point of no return with mediocrity, then what follows will be the most precise instruction you have ever received. Now let me show you how to master your 24 hours every day like a genius. The activation begins today, not with grand gestures, with precise ones. The first action takes 30 minutes. Sit down with nothing but silence and honesty. Write down every single activity that currently occupies your hours. Every task, every commitment, every habit, every obligation that takes your time. Do not filter, do not organize. Simply expose everything that is in there. This is not planning, this is diagnosis. And most people, when they perform this exercise for the first time, are confronted with a reality they were not prepared to see. They see patterns that were inherited from the life of someone else. They see obligations that were accepted out of guilt and maintained out of fear. See them, name them, because the removal cannot begin until the acknowledgement is complete. The second action comes immediately after, against that list. Identify no more than 3 activities, 3 and no more, that are directly connected to your blueprint, your original assignment, the function you were designed to perform. 3, not 10, not 5, 3. Because mastery is depth, and depth requires a concentration of energy that scattered attention can never produce. If you cannot identify 3, start with 1. Find the single most connected activity. The single task that, when you are doing it, feels like the most natural expression of what you are. That is your center. The third action governs the structure of your day going forward. Those 3 activities, or that one activity, must receive the first and best portion of your daily energy. They are placed at the beginning. They are protected from interruption. They are treated not as preferences, but as assignments, because they are assignments. And the one who fails their assignment does not fail because they lacked ability. They fail because they allowed the assignment to be treated as optional. It was never optional. It was always the reason the other hours existed. The fourth action is the act of removal. Every activity on your list that is not connected to those 3 must be evaluated with one question only. Does this serve the assignment? If it does, it remains. If it does not, it is removed from your life. Not next month, not when the timing feels better. Now, this will feel uncomfortable. It will feel like loss. But what you are actually losing are the weights that were preventing you from moving at the speed you were designed to move. The fifth action is the reclamation of the morning. Beginning tomorrow, before you engage with any external information, before you respond to any message, before the demands of others reach you, you will create a window. 15 minutes is sufficient to begin. That window belongs entirely to the practice of alignment, to the act of setting your own direction before the world attempts to set it for you. What you do in that window is less important than the fact that it exists and that it is protected. It is the first act of authority you will exercise over your own life. The sixth action is the restoration of rest as a design feature. You must identify what your system actually needs for recovery, and you must schedule it. Not as a reward for completing everything else, as a necessary component of the cycle. Without it, your output declines, your decisions become poor, your capacity for the work that matters shrinks, and the hours you believe you are saving by removing rest are hours you are actually destroying in the quality of everything you produce. Now let me speak to something deeper, something that no productivity system can touch, because the root of this battle, the deepest and most persistent reason you have been losing your hours, is the belief you carry about your own value. You have been trying to protect your time while simultaneously believing it does not deserve protection. You have been trying to build a life of alignment while carrying inside you the inherited belief that you are not worth the investment, that your assignment can wait until everyone else is satisfied first. And this belief is the most effective form of time theft that exists. Not social media, not meetings, not distraction. The belief that you are not worth prioritizing. That belief steals more hours than every other thief combined. Let me submit to you that your time is not ordinary. Every hour that passes without being used in connection with your assignment is not simply a lost hour. It is a piece of your life that can never be recovered, not spent wisely, not invested, lost. And the accumulation of those lost hours over months, over years, is the accumulation of a life that was never truly lived despite being fully occupied. This is why the principles matter. Not because structure is interesting to think about, but because structure is the vessel that holds your destiny. Without it, destiny leaks out of your hands 1 hour at a time. Let me speak now to the question of timing, because this is the belief that paralyzes more people than any other. The belief that you are behind, that the window has closed, that other people are moving and you are standing still, that your age, your circumstances, your history have disqualified you from the life you were designed to build. This is one of the most carefully constructed illusions ever delivered into human understanding, because the manufacturer does not operate on human timelines. The manufacturer does not look at your past and calculate whether your best output is behind you. The manufacturer looks at one thing only: alignment. Are you aligned? Is the current direction of your life in agreement with the blueprint? Because aligned time is not the same as unaligned time. 1 year of life spent in genuine alignment with your assignment will produce more lasting output than a decade spent moving in the wrong direction. The math of aligned living is not the math of the clock. It is the math of the design. So the comparison you have been making, the constant measuring of your progress against the progress of others, must stop. It is consuming the very hours you need to build what is yours. You cannot build what is yours while constantly looking at what has been built by someone else. And let me reframe the pain you have carried. Because many of you have lived through seasons that broke things, seasons that destroyed plans and shattered timelines. Let me be precise about what those seasons were. They were not punishments. They were not evidence that the blueprint was wrong. They were corrections. In any manufacturing process, when a deviation from the specification is identified, the line does not continue producing defective units. It stops. It examines. It corrects. The correction is not gentle. It is firm. It disrupts the flow. It requires the system to return to a point before the error occurred. Your painful seasons were that process. They were the correction that brought you back to a point where the misalignment could be seen and addressed. The fact that you are still here, still standing, still searching, tells me that the correction began to do its work. The blueprint was not destroyed. It was recovered. And the task that remains is not to rebuild from nothing. It is to continue the process of aligning what exists with what was always designed. This is not the end of difficulty. Alignment is not the absence of resistance. It is the presence of purpose within the resistance. When you are aligned, the challenges do not disappear. They become the very material through which the assignment is built. Let me speak to what this looks like in practice, because I am not describing a fantasy. I am describing a daily reality. Mastering your 24 hours does not look like a perfect schedule where nothing ever goes wrong. It looks like a person who, when they deviate from alignment, notices quickly and returns. It looks like someone who holds their time with a quiet, unshakable authority that does not need permission from anyone. Someone who does less in terms of volume, but more in terms of significance. Someone whose day ends with the knowledge that the hours were used for something that mattered. And that something moved the blueprint forward. This is genius. This is what genius actually is in its truest and most practical form. It is not supernatural ability. It is not the accident of being born in the right place with the right connections. It is the daily practice of aligning your hours with your design. And it is available to you, not in some distant future when conditions are perfect. Now, in the very next hour after this teaching ends, let me close with a charge that must carry you forward. Because this is not the conclusion of an experience. This is the beginning of a practice and practices. 2, require daily commitment. They require the willingness to fail and return. Mastery is built 1 hour at a time through the consistent practice of putting those hours in agreement with the purpose they were given. You are not a copy. The systems that work for others may be the very systems that destroy you, because your blueprint is not their blueprint. The schedule that produces genius in one person may produce mediocrity in another. The genius in you will never be awakened through imitation. It will only be awakened through the act of discovering and honoring the original specification that was placed inside you. Be original, not a copy, because a copy will always be a lesser version of the original. And you were never constructed to be lesser. You were constructed to be precisely what you are, to do precisely what you were made to do, in precisely the way that no other person on this earth can do it. The hours you have spent up to this very moment belong to the past. They cannot be recovered. They are gone. And the past holds no authority over what comes next unless you let it. What you have is this moment, this hour, this day, and every hour and every day that follows. And if you take what has been delivered here and you apply it with the same seriousness with which it was taught, something will shift, not in the abstract, in the actual tangible structure of your life. Beginning in the next hour you spend, die empty. That is not a morbid statement. It is the highest aspiration a designed being can hold. It means that at the end of your life, nothing inside you was left unused. No potential, undeveloped, no capacity, wasted, no assignment, abandoned. It means you showed up to the work you were built for and you gave it everything, not to the expectations of others, to the blueprint, to the original design, to the function that was placed inside you before you ever drew your first breath. The manufacturer placed something extraordinary inside your 24 hours. Not some of them, all of them. Every hour carries the capacity to produce something of significance. If it is used in alignment with the design, the work that remains is the work of uncovering what is already there and building your life around it with the precision and commitment it deserves. Be original, not a copy. Die empty. The time is now.